Luis Ruelas, the husband of the genuine housewives of New Jersey, has been called a real ook for his offensive statements made in the finale about Margaret Josephs. It was the horrifying things that he said about her and her family that caused viewers to stand up and protest. After witnessing him go off, what conclusions did they draw from their experience? Continue reading for further information. Rhobh, given the moniker Real ook by Luis Ruelas, comments. Regarding the Vila finale, with the exception of Teresa Giudice and her 4 daughters, Luis Ruelas has not been anyone's favorite person on the Real Housewives of New Jersey. Now that he has wished suffering upon Margaret Joseph's son, he has achieved the lowest level that is technically feasible. In the episode that was one of the penultimate ones, Teresa and Luis got together a few members of the cast as well as her attorney. They said that they had information about Margaret that was both dirt and a bombshell to drop. As it turned out, all they wanted to do was let everyone know that Margaret had been in contact with Luis's former partner. Furthermore, it is believed that she was the one who assisted in the dissemination of false narratives regarding Luis. Those who watched it did not care about it and thought it was more of a disappointment than a bomber. The purpose of the significant season 14 finale was to provide an explanation for why there was no reunion and to bring an end to a chapter. Additionally, it was designed to be explosive in nature. At the time that Teresa was getting ready to leave, she was having a conversation with Luis during the Last Supper that Dolores Catania and Jennifer Fessler had organized at Rails. In the course of their conversation about Margaret, Luis made the following statement: "Tell her to stay away from our family." What else is there to say? I pray that Margaret and her family are afflicted. I pray that her fucking son endures the same kind of suffering that I did, as well as the kind of suffering that other members of our family have endured. Luis made the observation that Margaret was a disgusting, vile human being, and continued by saying, "She's here to take advantage of everything that's going on, and she's a real piece of garbage. You should not even bother sitting in front of Margaret if she does not apologize to you, Teresa. She is not even worth your time." It has been reported by Page 6 that the fact that Luis Ruelas brought up the son of Margaret Josephs and desired for him to suffer has caused supporters to become extremely angry. When it comes to the pain of Margaret's son, Luis is a complete and utter idiot. In no way is he a good person. Would you like to see Margaret, her son, and the rest of their family go through a lot of pain? OMG, the dude is the very definition of the devil. It would be a bridge too far for Luis to state that he hopes Marge's son goes through pain. This is not even on the show. The fact that Margaret Joseph's son is not even a part of the play was another topic that was brought up on several occasions. It is for this reason that she should not have been brought up in the first place. She has never allowed her son to appear on the show, and he has never addressed the media about the supposed events that took place or did not take place, which was quite cruel. In other words, everyone is ignoring the fact that Louis has stated that he wants Margaret's son to suffer, despite the fact that this individual is not a part of the show and has nothing to do with this insanity. This is a real sociopath who has no concern for others. Luis Ruelas did not back down from his statements on Margaret's son and was unrelenting in his manner of speaking about him. He felt that he needed to have his voice heard, despite the fact that Teresa Giudice was the one who was going to the supper. They had no idea that Jackie Goldschneider was the one who was communicating with Luis's ex-girlfriend and spending time with her the entire time. When it came to the conclusion, did you believe that Luis actually revealed his true nature? In addition to this, do you wish that you would never have to encounter him again? Please let us know and make sure to tune in to the alternative reunion of the Real Housewives of New Jersey on Bravo on Sunday, August 11th. The Real Housewives of New Jersey, RHONJ, has long thrived on fiery personalities and interpersonal drama, but rarely has a moment so singularly seared itself into viewers' collective consciousness. On the season 14 finale, an off-screen player, Luis Ruelas, shattered the thin veneer of reality TV civility in a way that not only upended the narrative, but also forced a reckoning over where the line between authentic passion and outright cruelty must be drawn. What transpired at Rail's Steakhouse that night would become the most talked about moment in Jersey Housewives history, forever branding Luis with an epithet no PR team could ever spin positively. Page 6. From his first on-camera appearance alongside wife Teresa Giudice, Luis, often affectionately called Louie, was introduced as a devoted spouse, an entrepreneurial foil to the Bravo-birthed billionaires and house flipper extraordinaires of the Garden State. Yet on that finale, seating arrangements and whispered alliances gave way to a raw, unfiltered declaration of animosity that exploded from his lips, shattering the carefully choreographed facade of polite afternoon cocktails. The audience, both live and at home, recoiled as he crossed a threshold few dared approach, invoking the suffering of an innocent child. Setting the stage, Season 14 in feuds. Season 14 had already been billed as one of H.O.J.'s most tumultuous. Already entangled in a years-long feud, Teresa Giudice and Margaret Josephs had exchanged barbed quips ever since Josephs allegedly spoke with one of Ruelas' ex-partners to dig up dirt on him, a move Giudice publicly decried as a betrayal of marital sanctity. Page 6, Margaret, an author and former model, responded with her own set of accusations, painting Teresa's marriage as fraught with insecurity and projecting her husband's alleged misdeeds onto the family unit. These tensions, seasoned by 6 seasons of tete-a-tetes at horse farms and charity galas, set the perfect powder keg. As production intercut group dinners and one-on-one confessions, viewers sensed an approaching crescendo. Whether by design or folly, the cast rendezvoused at Rails, whose crimson leather banquettes have become the backdrop for O&J's most dramatic confrontations. Teresa versus Margaret, a rivalry ignited long before Rail's Steakhouse, Teresa Giudice had positioned herself as H.O.J. royalty, her fiery temper matched only by her unapologetic embrace of family-first values. Margaret Josephs, in contrast, cultivated an image of savvy sophistication, her literary career and divorce survival story wielded as badges of independence. When these two powerhouses met, the collision was inevitable. In earlier episodes, we witnessed covert glances and soggy bottom lines of champagne gone flat, each interaction a test of wills. Margaret's dig at Teresa for overprotecting her husband triggered a defiant defense, in which Teresa insisted that loyalty to one's spouse was sacrosanct. The feud escalated when Teresa claimed Margaret had crossed the line by contacting Ruelas' ex, suggesting the latter had orchestrated a smear campaign. What began as whispered suspicion metastasized into a full-blown public spat, mirroring a Shakespearean tragedy played out in pastel designer gowns. The build-up, tensions before the finale. As the finale loomed, our H.O.J. editors ramped up the suspense. We saw late-night texts shot across manicured lawns, jealous looks exchanged over charcuterie boards, and private confessions to the cameramen, never aired but edited to heighten anticipation. A cast dinner in Hoboken ended with Teresa storming out, and Margaret was shown quietly deflating a guest's balloon for the adjacent party, a gesture so petty it seemed almost poetic in its vindictiveness. Throughout these vignettes, producers artfully reminded viewers of the stakes: loyalty, reputation, and the question of whether Margaret would ever issue an apology for meddling in Teresa's marriage, or if Teresa would forgive. The countdown clock on Bravo's website ticked inexorably toward the Rails showdown, promising that decades of drama would finally come to a head. Rail's Steakhouse, the final battleground. On the night of the filming, Rail's Steakhouse was transformed. Tables were pushed together, flanked by cameras on golden tripods. The warm glow of Edison bulbs lent an air of intimacy, one that belied the simmering hostility at play. Crisply pressed suits and couture dresses clashed beside carefully arranged steak knives. Laughter mingled with tension, so thick it could be carved into fillets. When the cast assembled, Teresa approached Margaret with measured fury. Margaret, sipping a glass of Pinot Gris, swallowed her retort before leaning forward. Cameras rolled as live audio feeds captured every syllable. It was in this crucible of Cabernet and confrontation that Luis Ruelas, summoned by his wife to the fray, delivered the line that would define his public persona. The moment of truth, Luis speaks. Standing at the periphery, Luis surveyed the room, his wife's narrowed eyes, Margaret's cool composure, and the other housewives leaning in, half expectant, half mortified. He was the last piece in a puzzle of provocation and pride, a spectator turned executioner of civility. "Tell her to stay away from our family," he began, his tone deceptively calm. "And you know what? I hope Margaret and her family suffer." The silence that followed was deafening. Long enough for viewers to register his words at home, long enough for those present to feel the air turn rancid. Page 6. A shocking declaration. Real revealed. Luis's next words cut deeper. "I hope her effing son suffers the way I suffered, the way other people in our family have suffered dealing with a woman like that." In one fell swoop, he dragged an innocent child into a feud that had, until then, remained relatively confined to adult grievances. Page 6 social media viewers immediately labeled him a real duck for this transgression, an epithet that encapsulated both disgust and disbelief. To wish harm on a minor was more than personal vendetta. It breached an unwritten rule even reality TV antagonists generally respect. Margaret, momentarily stunned, replied with measured composure, while Teresa nodded in grim agreement, her own fury momentarily eclipsed by the shock rippling through the room. Fans erupt. Social media outrage. Immediately following the broadcast, X, formerly Twitter, lit up. One user wrote, "Luis is a real DK to say that about Margaret's son suffering. He's not a good person." Another declared, "Louis wishing suffering on Margaret, her son, and their whole family? The guy is literally the devil." Page 6 reality blurb. Reddit threads exploded with commenters branding him sociopathic and lamenting the show's turn into dark territory. Some defended Teresa's right to support her husband, while others called for Bravo to apologize to Margaret's son directly. Hashtags like Team Margaret and Boycott RHONJ trended within hours, illustrating how quickly reality TV moments can transcend entertainment to become cultural flashpoints. Voices of condemnation. From fans to celebrities. The backlash wasn't confined to fan forums. Industry insiders and fellow reality stars weighed in. On Bitch Sesh, a Real Housewives breakdown, the hosts expressed disbelief that such a personal attack could be broadcast. They noted that while housewives often insult one another's behavior or fashion choices, attacking family members, especially children, had never been part of the Jersey ethos. The consensus? Luis had shattered a boundary few even recognized existed. Meanwhile, competitors from other franchises watched with a mix of voyeuristic satisfaction and moral outrage. Was this the new low for Bravo, or simply the inevitable escalation in an arms race of on-screen drama? The answers were as divided as the fanbase itself. Andy Cohen's rebuke. Even Bravo patriarch Andy Cohen found himself compelled to speak out. In an interview on Radio Andy, Cohen, now father to a young son, admitted that if anyone spoke of his children in such a manner, "I would go absolutely mental." He labeled Luis's remarks dark and unacceptable, stressing that reality shows should entertain but never legitimize cruelty towards minors. Decider Cohen's comments carried weight, not only as an executive producer but as a voice of the network's values. His public disapproval signaled that Bravo acknowledged the gravity of the situation and felt the need to distance itself from comments that could be construed as endorsing familial harm. The power of words, impact on families. Few stopped to consider the aftermath of reality TV feuds on the lives portrayed. Margaret Josephs, though a resilient public figure, found herself in an impossible position, defending her privacy while safeguarding her child from unwanted attention. Her son, never before featured on the show, suddenly became the subject of online vitriol, whispers, and memes, a vulnerability both Margaret and Bravo had ostensibly tried to respect. Psychologists note that children of public figures can experience anxiety and shame when thrust into controversies not of their making. Even a fleeting desire for harm, broadcast nationwide, can leave emotional scars. The incident prompted broader discussions about the ethical responsibilities of reality TV participants and the producers who package and profit from their conflicts. Teresa's complicity, a partner in crime? Teresa Giudice's role in the debacle cannot be overlooked. By summoning Luis to the table and nodding along as he unleashed his fury, she tacitly endorsed a moment many felt was inexcusable. Critics argued that, as a seasoned reality star, Teresa should have known better than to involve her husband in a conflict that breached audience sympathy. Others defended her, pointing out that Teresa herself had often been on the receiving end of harsh criticism, some of it deeply personal. Loyalty to one's spouse, they argued, can override broader social niceties. But amid the storm, Teresa faced questions. Was her ambition to win the feud worth the collateral damage? And did she, in fact, lose more than she gained? The apology, damage control. Within 24 hours of the finale airing, Luis issued a lengthy apology on Instagram. He expressed regret for dragging Margaret's son into their dispute, acknowledged that two wrongs don't make a right, and cited frustration over false accusations as the root of his remarks. People.com. In carefully curated prose, he wrote that he understood the pain his words caused, especially to an innocent child. Teresa also addressed the fallout, calling for an end to the toxicity and urging fans to remember that the cast members are people with real families. Whether heartfelt or strategically timed, the apology underscored the high stakes of reality TV reputation management. Analysis: can apologies truly heal? In the world of PR spin, apologies often come with asterisks. Media analysts observed that while Luis's mea culpa contained the necessary emotional checkpoints, expression of remorse, acknowledgement of wrongdoing, promise of better behavior, it lacked concrete actions. No mention was made of private outreach to Margaret or her son, nor of therapy or community work to atone for the harm done. Scholars of media ethics warn that verbal apologies, broadcast through the same channels that disseminated the offense, can ring hollow. Without tangible restitution or behavioral change, they risk being perceived as cursory attempts to placate public fury rather than genuine contrition. The franchise at a crossroads. Impact on RHONJ. RHONJ has reached a pivotal moment. With cast infighting already at an all-time high, so severe that Bravo forewent a traditional reunion in favor of a two-part special, there are whispers that producers may reboot the entire lineup. The franchise's survival hinges on balancing sensationalism with a modicum of decency. Viewership spikes amid controversy are a double-edged sword. Ratings rise, ad dollars flow, but sustained backlash can erode brand equity. Sponsors may balk at association with televised threats to children, and audiences, especially those who grew up with the show, could lose trust in a franchise that appears to sanction cruelty. Casting doubts, will fans return? Despite the uproar, RHONJ boasts a fiercely loyal fan base. For many, the season's crescendo was must-see TV. Yet others have signaled they will boycott future seasons unless Bravo implements stricter editorial standards, ensuring that children and families are off-limits in cast disputes. Social media polls conducted in the week following the finale suggested a roughly even split between viewers who would tune in regardless, wouldn't miss it for the world, and those declaring, "I've had enough, time to move on." The gulf speaks to a broader question facing reality television. How far can producers push conflict before audiences, fatigued by cruelty, press mute? The business of drama. Ratings versus reputation. Behind every cutting remark is a calculus of eyeballs and engagement. Networks know controversy drives water cooler chatter, trending clips, and social media debates. Yet, overt cruelty, especially toward children, risks triggering advertiser flight and regulatory scrutiny. Sponsorships for RHONJ range from fashion lines to luxury real estate developers. None want their brand linked to televised threats. Internal Bravo memos, leaked to trade press, reportedly urge caution. Don't invite self-harm or harm to minors for content. Stay edgy, but within the bounds of decency. Whether such guidelines will be enforced remains to be seen. Creative conclusion. The legacy of that moment, Luis Ruelas' infamous line at Rails, will endure as a cautionary tale in reality TV lore. It serves as a stark reminder that the quest for authenticity, arguably the genre's raison d'etre, can also unleash the ugliest facets of human emotion when unchecked by basic ethical norms. In the aftermath, RHONJ stands at a crossroads. Embrace the full-throttle drama that built its name, or recalibrate toward more constructive conflict. Teresa and Margaret's feud will continue to provide emotional fuel, but one hopes future battles refrain from targeting innocents. The franchise's legacy depends on it. Final thoughts. A Real Housewives reflection. Reality television mirrors real life only insofar as emotions run high and relationships fracture. Yet when cares for spectacle override concern for well-being, especially of those not even on screen, producers, participants, and viewers alike must pause. Luis's real moment was more than a viral headline. It was a flashpoint that challenged the moral boundaries of entertainment. As Teresa, Margaret, and the rest of the New Jersey ensemble navigate the fallout, they and we must ask, what price are we willing to pay for drama? And at what point does the audience say, enough? Only time will tell if the vineyards of Rails can heal the wounds inflicted under its warm lights, or if this chapter will remain the darkest hour in our H&J history.